What's in a question? Maybe just about everything important. A smart and sharp question should strike up the most engaging of conversations, so let's have ourselves a little discussion. Here's Diane, you in the studio. Good morning, Diane.
Good morning. Happy Friday Eve, according to Adam.
Yes.
He's pushing for that.
I was kind of thrown aback. I was like, oh no, Adam, it's not Friday.
Eve.
But he said Eve.
You gotta wait
so
for it.
It is Thursday.
Yes, it's Thursday.
Okay, so let's give out our question and our topic to our listeners.
So question, do we really need to fail to succeed? So failures are the stepping stones to success, they say. And in Korean, there's also a saying that goes, 실패는 성공의 어머니다, which directly translates into failure is the mother of success. Disappointments are an essential stepping stone to success, a turning point in our life story that will ultimately end in triumph. Rather than falling into despair, we are encouraged to fail forward.
That's one of my favorite Korean expressions. 실패는 성공의 어머니다. Yes.
Right. Do you really believe in that?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So I think it's important to fail and garner the necessary experience and don't make the same mistake again.
Right.
Although sometimes I don't follow my own, advice. I make the same mistakes over and over again.
Right. We're only humans, guys.
Yes. So you took a look at two different studies, one conducted by Stanford University, another one conducted by Michigan State University, that prove that humans are actually wired to have a higher tendency to learn from failures?
So yes. So studies show that we do really need to fail to succeed. The human brain is made up of mechanisms that instinctively learn from failure. However, it is said that a positive attitude that can be developed through learning through psychological characteristics such as intelligence and personalities plays a decisive role in making failure successful.
Okay, so let's dive into the study from Stanford first.
Right. So Carol Dweck, a professor of psychology at Stanford University, has studied the importance of people's beliefs about learning and intelligence. And she looked at the difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset. The former is a person who believes that psychological characteristics such as intelligence and personality are immutable, while the latter is a person who believes that intelligence can change and can be developed through learning. And according to her research results, people with a fixed mindset see failure as an inevitable lack of ability and withdraw from the task they failed at once. And on the other hand, people with a growth mindset just try to learn from failure as an educational opportunity.
Okay, and then jumping over to the MSU study.
Right. It's Professor Moser and his colleagues studied the learning process for failure through EEG measurement, and the results were even more interesting than they expected. They measured EEG changes in the process of assigning and solving tasks to subjects, and as a result, they found that the human brain triggers two different responses to each failure. The first reaction is a signal called error-related negativity, which is generated subconsciously 50 milliseconds after a failure. The second response is error positivity, generated between 100 and 500 milliseconds after a failure. It is said to be created when you think about disappointing results after failure. And interestingly, if the first one, ERN, error-related negativity, and PE, error positivity, are generated in the same pattern, they learn a lot from failure. And as a result of the study, people with a high growth mindset showed an increase in PE. And this was a reaction that did not appear in people with a high fixed mindset. In fact, people with a high growth mindset showed much higher accuracy after making a mistake than people with a high fixed mindset.
Okay, so when you look at these motivational literature and from the speakers, failure is often viewed as something that is celebrated.
Right.
Right? But in reality, a lot of people fail to handle failure constructively.
Right, yeah, they fail. Yes, exactly. There simply aren't a lot of people who have this so-called growth mindset. Inspirational speakers are fond of quoting the words of the novelist Samuel Beckett, fail again, fail better. But the truth is that most of us fail again and fail the same. That's because instead of handling failure well, we find ways to devalue the task at which we failed, meaning that we may be less motivated to preserve and reach our goal. This phenomenon is called as the sour grape effect. Alternatively, we may simply fail to notice our errors and blithely continue as if nothing has happened, something that prevents us from learning a better strategy to improve our performance in the future.
I've never heard about this sour grape effect. What is that?
So it's an effect discovered by Hallgeir Sjøstad, a professor of psychology at the Norwegian School of Economics, and his colleagues. So the research was an attempt to understand why we sometimes give up too early, even though we could have succeeded if we had been a bit more patient and willing to give it a second try. So Sjøstad hypothesized that people who were given negative feedback about their practice answers would underestimate the importance of their future performance of their emotional state, and this was exactly what happened.
Okay. And why do people react that way?
So he says they act this way because of they're trying to be self-protective. Most of us want to think ourselves as competent and capable people. So when external feedback suggests otherwise, it poses a serious threat to self-image. So the easiest way out is to deny or explain away the external signal so we can reduce the inconsistency and preserve a positive sense of self. I think we do this all the time, even without even noticing.
Okay. So it's basically providing excuses.
Yes.
To make
in
ourselves,
a negative kind of way, yes.
To make ourselves feel better
Right.
For our failures.
Uh-huh.
But in that process, it kind of covers up the opportunity for us to learn from that
Right,
failure.
exactly.
Because we're trying to sweep the failure underneath the rug. Aside from that new term that I learned, the sour grape effect, what are some of the other reasons that can contribute to us not learning from our failures?
Right. So another coping mechanism is to hide your head in the sand, shifting your attention away from the upsetting situation so that you don't have to process it. Researchers have long known that we often turn a blind eye to incoming bad news. For example, economists have found that investors are less likely to check their financial status when their fortunes are falling rather than rising. I guess this is what's happening these days. And this phenomenon has been called the ostrich effect, and it may be an example of a far wider tendency to overlook negative information according to a series of recent studies.
Okay, so give us the answer, the antidote. How can we fail constructively and successfully?
Right. Yeah, so experts and professors say that there are some strategies to overcome the emotional barriers to confronting failure. The first one is a process called self-distancing, in which you adopt a third-person perspective. Instead of asking, why did I fail? I might ask, distancing myself, why did Diane fail, for example? Multiple studies by psychologist Ethan Cross at the University of Michigan show that self-distancing helps to soften our negative emotion reactions, allowing us to view upsetting events more objectively. In this case, it should mean that the failure feels less threatening to the ego so that we can better analyze the reasons for the disappointment without having sour grapes or defensively hiding our heads in the sand.
And another way is apparently helping others.
Right. So the second strategy involves offering advice to others who may be in the same position as you. Professor at UPenn found that satisfaction of helping another person provides a personal ego boost so that people feel more confident to confront their own failures. So all in all, failures are an inevitable part of our lives. If you never fail, you're probably aiming too low. And by learning to confront the disappointment and learn from the lessons, you may find the road to success a little easier to navigate.
Okay, so keep a positive growth mindset.
Right.
Learn to, I guess, teach others from your failures. And what else?
Distance yourself.
Self-distancing.
From yourself.
Self-distancing. Got it. And don't have the sour grape effect.
Right.
I like that term.
Keep in mind.
Well, thank you so much, Diane, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow.